Just wanted to ask. I always keep forgetting to check my story, but I'm pretty sure it's. You mean this way? This is where everybody's going.
Yeah.
I didn't want to miss this group back here.
Oh.
You got a few behind you. Pardon me?
I said, it's okay. So I'm
You're just his wife. You're just the wife, right? Yeah, we know how that goes.
now I have others telling me where it's at.
Yeah.
First wife.
Are you able to call up YouTube on that? Back there?
I can with a little bit of, if you give me a little heads up as to where I'm going.
So you have to mess up. Can you be doing that while we're doing something else on the screen here? If you can look
I
up
don't think so.
dedicate, let's see, St. Andrew Lutheran Church dedication fishing village, something like that, under YouTube. Okay. Food for the Poor started, if you, in the brochure, you saw this man with these kids all around him. That is Robin Mahfood, and he is the CEO of Food for the Poor. He's a president and CEO.
Again, same what?
Robin Mahfood.
No, the church.
Oh,
Church.
Fishing Village Dedication St. Andrew Lutheran. I think that'll give you dedication Fishing Village St. Andrew. Yeah, he's on YouTube. Try that. Okay, but don't do it yet. Let's just, you're there. You go back up to the top. Kind of hold right there. Kind of hold right there.
Okay.
All right. So Robin is the son of Mr. Mahfood, his dad, and that family. I can't remember if they still own, but they were big commercial shipping magnate of. They had fishing or shipping freighter vessels all over the Caribbean, and they would make these. Shipments into the ports of all these countries, and they would notice when the family, sometimes family members would go along just see how things were going and all this kind of stuff, and they would start noticing the poverty of these countries, even right there in the, yes ma'am.
You know what? The pictures aren't showing up here.
Yeah.
We're not ready yet.
Nobody can see.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm
all
sorry.
you got's me.
I
All
came
you
late.
got's
I
me.
apologize.
I'm live.
That's what I get for being late.
This is not a reasonable facsimile. We're trying to catch up here.
Okay, sorry.
But they would notice the poverty of these countries, and they would start trying to help. So they'd start giving them money, and why don't you use this for that? And they would just do some suggestions. And then the finance people of the company kind of came to the family and said, "You've got to quit doing that. We're losing. We're losing. We don't have that in our budget." And the family said, "Well, we've got to do something. We can't just ignore these people in their situation." So they established Food for the Poor. And so Robin is still a family member. There are other. They have a large. They have a very wide, broad board of directors that's made up of a lot of different faiths. And a number of years ago, they started the whole idea of having speakers go out and speak to congregate. So the Catholics, priests go to Catholic congregations, and there are far more. Then there's a number of us Lutheran Missouri Synod that go out. And my vicarage supervisor, Walter Volz, who speaks, he's like 81 years old. I'm a part-time speaker, which means about once a month through the year. He's full-time, which means at least 33 times a year. He came to our congregation. I had a phone call, just like they had here, a lady with broken English speaking, and said, "Would you be willing to have so-and-so come and speak to your congregation?" And I said, "Let me call Pastor Volz." He had been my vicarage supervisor in Raleigh, North Carolina. I was a vicar, still a student in seminary. I worked with him for a little over a year. So I called Walt and I said, "What's this Food for the Poor? You haven't heard of that?" "No, don't know anything about it." We were trying to figure out how to get involved in world missions. All my years in ministry, I could never figure that out. I've heard all these other churches doing it, but I guess we're not able to do it. So he walked away, he came and spoke like I did this morning, and he walked away with a large door offering. Got my attention. We're talking 4-digit door offering. So we began to, I called Food for the Poor, and I said, how does all this work? How do you get involved? And one thing led to another, and then we did this. So can you run that video, maybe?
Oh.
You're on. None of those look right. Here we go. I think. What it sounds like in Haiti. These are kids. So 2 ladies in my congregation and I went over to they invited us to go do the dedication of the village. You're going to see that, what this is. There are 2 of our ladies sitting across from each other, redhead, and one on the right waving. So we flew from Port-au-Prince to Jeremy, way out on the end of that peninsula. And we drove about 5 hours in a caravan out to our village. There's this stuff along with it. I think where people are getting water to drink out of that creek. Here we are.
Just like everybody was thinking it would turn out. In collaboration with St. Andrew Lutheran Church. That is wonderful. That is so great.
This is 2008. We named the boats. They wanted us to do that. All the kids in these, the ones that get to go to school wear uniforms, which they have to pay for.
It's just basically to put a few people together, a few elders, so you can help them make a real difference in the lives of people in this village. It's incredible. They should all be here to experience it.
No, it's very beautiful. It's definitely a God-given gift, and I can't say thank you enough to the Lord. So it's amazing. So, hey guys.
Give thanks to God for all the people of this village. It is the joy of the people of St. Andrew and Cape Girardeau, Missouri, to share these as our gifts to you.
That's how they used to do it, with rock and string.
May the blessing of Almighty God, the great strength of Jesus Christ, and the power of the Holy Spirit be with all who work on these boats, who fish in these boats, and may every catch be blessed to the joy and the life and the livelihood of all. It's very humbling. This was our Christmas for Jesus project, to celebrate Jesus' birthday by giving gifts to others that would be in need. That you know, I know how to give a gift to Jesus. And that's what we did by helping others. So we started Christmas in July of last year. And our gift to him was to bring gifts to these people. So the gift of the boats and the gift of the gear shed and everything that's here is our gift to Jesus for his birthday. And I believe he would be pleased. He's told us he would. That if you've done it to the least of one of these, you've done it to me. And I think it makes him smile. It makes him happy. It makes his people happy.
So, all along the shore of the country of Haiti, and a lot of these island countries, there are all these fishing villages. I mean, people live there, families live, and we walked around and we noticed the home they were living in. And as you saw in the brochure, that lady there with the mud hut for a house, a lot of them will just have banana bark, and they'll do like A-frame with leaning against each other, or they'll weave, they'll take sticks and they'll make a pattern out of that, and they'll either put mud or they'll weave in banana bark branches and all that kind of stuff, the big leaves. Then they'll come up with some contraption for a roof. And the winds come or the rains come, and of course when it rains a lot, what happens to a mud hut? It goes away. And they just get more mud and make a new one. And if it blows away your banana bark hut, it just, you go out and get more banana bark and leaves, and you make another house. So I'm asking, you noticed that Robin Mifud was kind of standing off on the side, and I said, where do these people live? And he said, right here. And I went, in these things here, these shacks, these huts? Yeah. And we even went to a couple of them, and a couple of people would come out, or a child would come out or whatever, and we'd talk. And I couldn't believe it. And I said, well, the gear shed that we built, that our dollars built, is better than any place they're living in. He went, that's true. And then he said, and Robin, he said, you looked at me, that just kind of looked. Now you know Food for the Poor built homes like this. I said, like that? Yeah. And I didn't, at the time, I didn't quite have a clue what they did. Well, so we went back and started thinking about it, talking about it. So we started another fund drive, and we raised money for 20 houses, 20 homes. Now the way they do that, they try to use as local a product as they can. We don't ship stone over there. They use stuff there for the local economy, or they make it on site, or they make it somewhere and they bring it in. And then the people whose home are there, I mean, this lady and her kid had to help with building that. It's kind of like Habitat for Humanity. Some sweat equity is involved in that. Because what Food for the Poor, and I should have said this, is best at, and this is one way to evaluate a ministry that you're involved in, no matter how local it is, wherever your dollars are going, is your dollar going to do something for people, or is it going to cause something to do with them? If it's for, be very cautious. Because Food for the Poor will not let us, we've got a lot of contractors in Cape Girardeau in our congregation. One time I was excited about getting all those guys jacked up and let's go build some homes and some schools, and they were all about it. We haven't built one house or one school. But our dollars have enabled them to build their own schools and their own homes. That's the difference. And it's because if we go in and do it and go off and leave it, guess whose it is? It's ours, it's not theirs. They could care less. So you can see a lot of different projects where people have come over from the States or other countries and they've done it, and it's just kind of deteriorated. Whereas in the areas where the people have been involved in the process and in the progress of it, they own it, and they're going to take care of it. And they also learn that as they take care of it, and Food for the Poor checks on that they're going to continue to be sustained, just as I said, after damage occurred. So they took general offerings that came in, perhaps from gatherings like this, and they were able to, we dedicated 40 homes in that village. They had us come back, and I took the chairman of our board of world missions. By that time, we had a board of world missions. When we did the first thing, we didn't have a board of missions. Like, maybe we needed somebody to concentrate on that. And it turned out to be a great board. Then we ended up doing some work in Kenya with Lutheran World Mission. So we've done a lot of different stuff. And sometimes somebody will say, so where are we going to get, we did a $3.5 million building program, expanded and all that kind of stuff. And the same year we absorbed the mortgage is when we did this fishing village. The staff comes to me and they said, don't you think we ought to wait till we pay off the mortgage? And I went, I don't find that in the scriptures anywhere. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you, unless you just picked up a mortgage, or unless you have a budget that doesn't work out so well. And there's no unless in any of his promises, in any of his challenges. There's never an unless. It's just like, okay, and then I put God on the spot and say, okay, if you want us to do this, then you're going to enable us and figure out how we're going to do it. So we did it, and because I believe in a stewardship lift. Maybe you've heard of that. that as you take on a worthy project, maybe it's a school, I don't know what, I don't want to suggest what it would be here by any stretch. Each congregation has to kind of figure that out. But as you take on that and you begin to raise money for that, it begins to increase the stewardship, giving, and all the other areas. So our budgets just continue to increase. We never put any of this stuff in our budget. A lot of congregations do, and that's wonderful. St. Andrew saw fit not to do that. I'd like to finance people figure that out. We just did it with offerings. When we were raising money for a truck, if I give you a video, can you?
Is it down your drive? Or, oh, yeah.
Pop that in. Sorry, it's kind of a messed up case. So this is in Guatemala, where we worked with. There was a group of Lutheran pastors, Missouri Synod. Two of them are now, at least one of them is a speaker, Gary Bach, in case you run across that name. And there was like 5 or 6 Lutheran congregations that came together, and they took a tour in Guatemala and with Food for the Poor, and they saw how they were trying to do school up in the hills with a chalkboard stretched between the trees on a rope, and they were sitting on stumps, a bench, homemade bench. And because in Guatemala, the government will pay the teacher to teach, and that's it. They don't pay for the building, they don't pay for uniform, they don't pay for supplies, none of that. The kids and the families have to come up with all the other stuff. So pastors sometimes find out about these situations in these hills, and they will bring Food for the Poor and let them see it. And then Food for the Poor will see if they can take it on as a project. Well, they did. And along with that, this pastor was trying to figure out a way. He was always having to rent a truck to take Food for the Poor items up into these hill villages and stuff. So they determined a need to get a truck. Well, we raised money for a truck. The way we did that, because we kind of wanted to come at it a little different way. Well, what if we give money out and ask people to multiply it and have it bring? So we had $5,000 to mess with in the budget. So $3,000 was, when people came up, if you were 10 years old or older, you could take a $10 bill with the obligation that you would take that $10 and multiply it. We raised $24,000 with that $3,000. Because kids were bringing me their plastic bags of money that they got from their lemonade stands at garage sales with their parents. Brother and sister at St. Paul Lutheran School in Jackson, Jerry, where's Jerry? There. The Murphy brother and sister, Brock and Maddox, went to their principal, Tim Murley, and said, we have $20 between us that we would like to use to raise money for a truck in Guatemala and for our church. And what we'd like to do is to use the money to put up posters and publicity and put things on the internet for kids to come to school and not wear a uniform, for either part of the uniform or the whole uniform for a day, and they would pay to do that. So much money you wouldn't have to wear the shorts or the breeches or the skirt or the top, and more, you could not have to wear any uniform on that day. They raised $1,200 that way with their $20. Isn't that cool? And that was in the newspaper. The coolest thing about that, being in the newspaper, is not so much about St. Andrew and all that stuff, but why we were doing it. And so Jesus got mentioned in the public newspaper, and it's like, wow. So, because they asked the kids, so why are you doing this? Well, this is how you give a gift to Jesus. Yes! We're raising money for a truck. And what I do is let the kids do the talking. So, here is that coalition with the school and then the truck and all that stuff. And if you're able to make that go. We're still doing work in Guatemala, but in some different ways now. And it was also in Guatemala that we raised money for you got to see that truck cross that bridge that I'm in. Just click on the picture. Just click on it. Click on that. See if it'll. So it's not letting me play it. And I don't know enough to come over there and make it happen. I'll let you just keep playing with it. But that truck, we went into, with that truck, he delivered some goods to a place where they were growing a huge, I don't know if you call it a farm or a huge garden, but it was like acres of broccoli and I forget what other plants. And we joined with the ladies as they had the rows laid out and we were planting the seedlings in the ground for them to grow these crops and all that stuff. So that's what they did. So many different projects. It was in Guatemala where where the 9 ladies from St. Michael's took their sewing machines. And I've never seen 9 women cry so much that we're giving them away, and then 9 women receiving them just bawl over the gift of these. They didn't know that there were those kind of machines, I don't think. And here they were, these portable sewing machines. It would be fun to go back and see how that's going. But so they were making dresses and clothing, particularly dress, because they do a lot of Guatemala. They're pretty colorful, and they have a lot of embroidery items. So they were making, and they're doing all the embroidery work, and for themselves as well as for their kids, and having more to go out on the streets and sell. The cross I'm wearing, I brought from a street vendor in Guatemala. And so there's a lot of that stuff going on. But as people learning how to help themselves, and they're not standing out on the side of the road begging for money, they're figuring out a way for that to help themselves. They're not holding a sign out. Nothing against people doing that, I guess, although I'm very concerned about it. I'm hungry, feed me, or I need a job. We saw a guy yesterday playing a saxophone down in down at Bart, playing a saxophone down there, and I guess he played all afternoon. Had his saxophone case open, people putting money in there. Now that's not bad. I mean, he was using a skill and a talent. He was pretty good, I think. I'm not a skilled musician, but it sounded good to me. Pretty mellow saxophone. And maybe he got a gig or two. You know, somebody invited him to a backyard party or to a wedding, or who knows. But he was helping himself with a skill that he had. And this is Guatemala. This is outside Guatemala City, about 3.5 hours. This is the farm project.
Dear Jesus, we ask you to bless us.
We want the project director to Food for the Poor.
And bless
in Utah.
what this is.
As Jesus said, if you did the least of my brothers, you've done it to me. And there are people all over this world that really need the blessings of the abundance that God has provided for us.
To help people to help themselves, you're also carrying the message of Christ.
That's Gary Locke out there. He's one of the speakers.
It's neat to see pastors and churches of like-mindedness with the focus on food for the poor and working with the Lutheran Church in Guatemala. I have no doubt that Pastor Chan would use his truck immediately. This seemed like something that we could do that would just facilitate all the ministries that are going on. Boots on the ground and seats in the truck.
Veteranos, hermanos, ayúdanos a construir un rostro de felicidad a nuestros amigos, a nuestros hermanos en Guatemala.
Here we go.
Yes! We can do this. That's right, yeah.
Dios, gracias por esta mañana.
Thank you, Lord, for this morning.
Gracias por la visita de tus hijos.
Thank you for the visiting of your sons and daughters.
Y gracias, Dios, porque nos das la oportunidad de servir a estos niños.
We have 2 of our members of this.
Thank you, Lord, for these kids that you love.
Gracias te damos, Dios,
We thank you, God,
a tu Hijo y al Espíritu Santo.
to your Son and your Holy Spirit.
Amén.
Amen.
Today we are seeing the finishing of a project that we began to imagine last year with Pastor Chan. A group of us, 6 pastors in total came here with Victor and Food for the Poor to see the needs here in Guatemala. The very first need he showed us was the school here in South Caja. The children were studying underneath trees, sitting on benches propped up by cinder blocks. And Pastor Chan's vision was a school. He said these children, the only way out of poverty is to be educated.
Los niños estudiaban bajo los árboles, no tenían techo, los niños tienen que estudiar sin maestro, ahora tienen maestro, ahora tienen escuela, y esto hay que dar gracias a Dios por ello.
We're here today to do some completion work, painting, and dedication of the school, working with the children, and having a great time.
With all the churches working together, we raised enough money to get all this work done. Today is the culmination of it with the painting and the kids working with us. We kind of expected to come and do it ourselves, but they wanted to jump in too.
See? The gospel is never quite squeaky clean and out of the book. It's usually messy and paint covered, and I think that's part of ministry too.
We're trying to infuse the paint into those little nooks and crannies there to get the paint in those areas. So I'm teaching them how to poke the paint, and then you brush to kind of smooth everything over.
They offered me gloves, but they were too late.
It's so exciting because they're all so happy and excited and they're so welcoming. It means a lot to actually see it come together.
Antes no hay escuela, no saben cómo leer y escribir. Pero ahora sí hay, gracias a Dios que sí. Ya los niños aprenden a leer y escribir.
God bless the use of these buildings,
Que Dios bendiga estos edificios
that you might be strong in Him,
y que puedan estar fuertes en Él.
and celebrate all this,
Y siempre celebremos
the love of Jesus Christ.
el amor de Cristo Jesús.
We dedicate this school
Dedicamos esta escuela
and bless it to the glory of God
y la bendecimos para la gloria y honra de Dios.
in the name of the Father
En el nombre del Padre,
and of the Son
del Hijo
and of the Holy Spirit.
y del Espíritu Santo.
Amen.
Amén. Un aplauso. Bravo.
Beautiful country, bunch of volcanoes. Now this is a water project that we went there to see if there was anything that could be done.
Dear Jesus, we ask you to bless us and bless the people who are visiting us. Amen.
Pues bien, como decíamos, nuevamente les damos esa cordial invitación.
We welcome you
Y muchísimas gracias por estar con nosotros.
and thank you for being with us today.
No tenemos agua para beber.
The thing is that we don't have water at all to drink, to wash.
Y no tenemos apoyo de nadie y necesitamos el santo líquido. Es muy pequeño.
We don't have the support from anybody at this moment, and we need for sure this
way out of the country.
liquid, which is the water. So what they are doing is they have to go to the river, down to the river, and most of the women are the ones that are going to be bringing the water on the head, because the men are either working in the field, or some women are basically widows or single mothers.
These folks in this particular village are just looking to get hooked up to the supply that exists, but they don't have the funding to be able to get that connected at this particular point. So they're just trying to be able to get the basic necessities met for their life. But if each of us could just on a regular basis help and support Food for the Poor, or the coalition that we're working together with through Food for the Poor, we'd be able to work on a lot of these projects and complete them.
Words can't express how God's Holy Spirit is working in and through this experience for our ministry in Tucson, the ministry of our coalition, but certainly in the lives of these people here in Guatemala.
Every time we go to one of these places, you're just impressed with the hope within the people. That there's that possibility that things might change.
You don't just come to observe, you come to work with the people, you come to experience their lives.
They're talking about
see
a trip. They do
their-
food for the
what their needs, their wants, even their dreams are.
When you're working with someone like Food for the Poor, a project like this is going to be handled very well. The money, I think, is going to be extended and expanded just the way the Lord would want it to be. Because not only are the people helped, but God's kingdom is expanded and extended and touched in many ways.
Estamos compartiendo el amor de Dios no solamente porque hablamos de Jesús, sino le estamos demostrando con hechos.
Gracias a ellos que
windmills? No.
vinieron, gracias a ellos que compartieron rato de menos y a todos. Agradezco mucho sus presencias.
Food for the Poor has engineers that research all that, and they find different ways. One of the things that they do in some places is to set up solar power plants. I was all about that in our fishing village. And they called me down and they said, that's short. You've done all you've done the fishing village, you've done the boats and all that stuff. 40 homes are up, and you've changed the lives of those people. I said, look, they need a community center, we need a power plant. We just can't get the materials to them. There's only one port in Haiti, and it's Port-au-Prince. And I said, they can't deliver goods and stuff by like a barge or something to the village. It's right there on the water. The government won't let us.
Yeah.
And the village is so remote, to try and truck stuff there was next to impossible. So they deal with that kind of issue a lot. So that's when they called us out of the village. They continued to work in the village, but we weren't able to do any more work. And we built some homes outside of Port-au-Prince after the earthquake. The other, I don't think I have enough time, because I want to give you a chance to ask questions. I have another video here of Rachel's village. Rachel, at the time, was a 12-year-old student in a Lutheran school in Florida. Right after the earthquake, of course it was on the news, of course being that close, she said, it was in the news a lot in Florida. And Rachel saw it and she said, Mom, we've got to do something about that. And so that night they prayed. Rachel kind of got the picture, this is all they were going to do, pray about it. She said, we got to do more than pray. And well, what do you want to do? I don't know, but we got to do something. Somehow or other they got a hold of Food for the Poor and started asking about what could be done. Long story short, Rachel raised $500,000. Built 20 homes in Rachel's village, 2025, right outside Port-au-Prince, right on the water, and across the highway from that, school is in the school. So here we go. 12-year-old girl.
It's really sad because it seems like it's so impossible to learn in such conditions.
Her family is a humble family. There's Rachel right there.
And rope tied to the top of cement buildings.
The ground's all gravel. There's like cement on the floors. It's just sad to see like they're intent.
I've seen you do everything. Disc without even
So
using
the school had to do it.
chalkboards on the
That's all they had.
silver paper. It's heart-wrenching.
It's shocking and amazing that these children can actually come to school every day in these conditions.
You just want to do everything you can. You really want to help them because you know that they have really good heart and they're really sweet kids.
27 homes.
She's inspired us to do so much and we're so glad that we're here with her. Well, we first heard about the story through our parents who heard through our church. Well, when we came here in the summertime in June for a missions trip and through Food for the Poor, we heard about our story and we were just really inspired to help.
She's just so young compared to everybody else. I mean, she's
Rachel's
doing all
started.
in before she did it in high school. It's amazing.
We just thought she was really special and we only have 8 years on her, but that's okay, we can still help now.
This structure behind me is the place that the children here in Rio de Moral called school since the earthquake. Their original building was destroyed. But the thing is, not only was it school, it became home for so many of the families who lost their housing because of the earthquake. But today, Because of the generosity of the Wheelers family and the Hamlets family, we're here in Rive de Morel to celebrate the inauguration of Rachel's School, an 8-classroom school with sanitation, where the children, 350 children who were housed under these tents, can have a safe place to call school. This is really a day of celebration.
I can walk around and I can see the old part of the school, then I can see the new school that Aston and Chesney helped me build, and it's so beautiful.
Giving them a school and structure can really help change their country.
Yeah, it gives them a reason to learn and try harder.
Yeah, it gives them
Excel.
place, to learn, and we hope that they can thrive in this environment.
The school where Rachel goes, Zion Lutheran Christian School, prepared backpacks for all of the children.
Each backpack is filled with school
That's the
supplies,
principle.
pencils, papers,
I
colored
got
pencils
dragged
that
in
they need to start school.
Kind of fantastic.
Emotionally
She now works for
overwhelming to actually
Food for
physically
full time.
give, to come from another
That's the
country,
whole part.
to distribute what you've collected. It's very heartwarming.
Respect and primordial giving. We wish you a very warm welcome. Or responsable for you. To the people from Food for the Poor, to the Wheeler family, the Helmet family, remotivate. You are more motivated because you are going to have more children to come to school.
We've got a small part here, but now the big part's up to the students, the faculty, and the teachers. We've got a great opportunity to increase your education here. We've got a great environment to be in, and this is the place where big dreams can be born.
It means so much to them, it means so much to us.
It's so much different. Instead of hearing about it, seeing everybody.
Yeah, we can send a picture, but it's so much different being here. All with their realities, yeah.
Putting their names.
Yeah, we have such a connection with the kids, that's so great.
My advice to them is to stay in school because if you don't have knowledge, you really don't have anything. If they don't have knowledge, they can't get a job or they can't teach their kids. And if they do, they can teach their kids and then pass it on to generations.
That's why I do what I do. Questions? Man, there's so many more stuff I could tell you about. I've got some cool pictures of before and after. To see some of these kids. I used to think that red hair was kind of a cool thing. But when you see carrot-colored hair on children, that's not a good thing. I still think red hair is cool. Carrot-colored, that's a sign of malnutrition. And I'll bring my folder out here. But I have pictures that shows these children that are drawn. Are you able to call any of this up? These pictures come. Yeah. Okay. So you see this lady right. This is Freddie, the little boy on the right. And you'll see, you just see the skin and bones, explore, edit, and create, yay! Now there's okay, this is back in Guatemala. This is, okay, now will it take you to the next one after this? No, it doesn't, maybe I don't have them lined up right. This is a garbage pile in Guatemala. If you were to get close in, you would notice a mother and her children gathering up stuff. They're not doing it in those bags. They're just gathering up stuff and putting it in their arm. They're going to walk down the street. What comes up after this one? Walk down the road, and this is where they lived. I said, oh, that's cool artwork on that rock. And they said, Pastor Chan said, you need to look a lot closer. Look at what's sitting that's where this woman and her children live. It was in a cave. People live in caves in these countries, and it's not unusual to find it. So Food for the Poor, they would go in and build a house for that family. And this shows some of the construction work. Food for the Poor has structural engineers that help the people with the right code for Food for the Poor. Haitian code is that's good enough. That won't work with Food for the Poor. They're going to rise to certain levels. Here's a tin roof they're putting on. That tin roof is tied on wire. And when that blows off from big winds and hurricanes, they go grab it and tie it back on. Or get more tin if it blows out in the ocean, whatever. There it is under construction, and I think the next one may show it completed. There it is. So it's a pretty monstrous. Yes?
How earthquake-proof are those?
That's a great question. After the earthquake, Food for the Poor went around and checked all the homes in different places. And none of the homes that Food for the Poor built were flattened. Some of them had cracks in the mortar lines, some fissures along the mortar lines of the cinder block, but none of them went down that they were aware of. Now, after the hurricane, our storage shed, which is built the same way, was totally gone. It blew it away. And it blew some of the roofs off the houses. But Food for the Poor went and rebuilt that home because they had dollars that poured in for those kinds of things. And they went in that the village leaders in the village stayed with Food for the Poor with the reports and stuff. Food for the Poor was willing to go back in with donor dollars and rebuild what had been destroyed. Rebuild and repair.
Because the recommendation after that horrible earthquake was that people move and leave because it was on the fall.
Yes, well.
And go to the mountains where it was more fertile.
Yeah, that's easier said than done, but yeah. Because then they don't know, then the problem is, you don't just go and take your money left over from your last house and buy a new house or buy new land. And Food for the Poor won't build a house where the people don't show paper that they own the land. So the big problem in Port-au-Prince was that people were living in apartment complexes and the office buildings where they would build on their concrete slab, put up a wall, and they put a slab on top of those walls and build more walls. And it was, so when the earthquake came, all of it just sank. It just absolutely was like waffles stacked on top of each other. Crushed everything and everybody that were still in those buildings. And they had to move out from those buildings. And they moved out to tents, tent villages. I think most of those are gone because they've been able to, Food for the Poor and others have been able to finally get into some housing. But it's an extreme challenge. They don't have enough electricity. When we came back in that night, or the next night, by the plane, we came in at dark, and I looked down and I said, that doesn't look like a lot of light for a big city like Port-au-Prince. And he said, that's a fourth of the city. He said, if you stay up here long enough, you'll watch those go out and another fourth will come on. And at that time, that's how they do.
Rolling blackout.
That's right, rolling what?
Blackout.
Yeah, rolling blackout, by design. So you had to take care of your stuff when you had your life. That's how they do it in these countries lots of times. Yes, ma'am.
How do you choose which family is going to get a home?
Great question. We kept asking that question. I said, are you going to build all these homes all at once?
Yeah.
It's like he said, we will look at some of the ones that maybe the ones that had more children or more older folks, because these people share generations. Not unusual to have at least 2, maybe 3 generations in one home. And we'll look at the need and we'll start there. And I said, well, what about the ones that are going to have to wait? He said, they will wait with hope and excitement. I never thought about that. So they're not going to feel left out and like, what about me? He said, no. Very seldom do you ever have that kind of an attitude. I went, yeah. He said, that's Americans. So it's amazing what you learn from that. But that's a very good question. We were concerned because we didn't raise all the money at once. It took us a while, but they were ready to go in. And the coolest thing that happened, I was invited to go into one of the homes when we were doing the dedication. Herb Anderson, our mission board director, was with us, and we're cautious about going into people's homes. That's just, we're not. America going into these homes and all that kind of stuff. And you never quite know. We weren't worried about our safety, but what's going to be perceived. And I looked at the village leader about being invited. And the person inviting us was a school teacher at a school way up in the city. And he had me come in. He said, "We want to thank you for this home that we're able to have." He said, "The dining room set that you're looking at, I was able to build myself. I've always wanted to do it, but I never lived in a house where I could do it and know that it wouldn't be destroyed by rains and storms, because my house would always leak." And I was talking about being humble. It was a dining room table and 6 chairs, and had his mother there and their kids, and we just like, wow. I said, "Well, you're extremely welcome. Extremely welcome." So I'll die with that memory. Pretty cool. So, is that class is over? No. It's your computer shutting down. Any other quick questions? Thank you for the time to share with you. Lord, we do thank you. We pray for these people that we've seen in videos and we've talked about. We pray for them. We pray that you will continue to enable them, to inspire them with your word and your good news, and that you will give them the wherewithal, Lord, to be able to rise up and to continue helping themselves. Give them great value, give them great faith. And Lord, help Food for the Poor to find ways to help these people find the right lift. And as we seek to give gifts to you, as we seek and work with those in need around us, right here in our own communities, around this church, and this community, as well as maybe in these parts of the world that we've talked about today. We commend all to you and all that you are for us and for them. In your name, Jesus, we pray. We all said together, amen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Very welcome.